Front.
I would hope that would be enough time. So we'll just get rolling here. I'm Brandon with Electrical Specialist, and today we're going to be talking about surge protection. It's something we get a lot of questions about. It's definitely something that's a little more in depth than your normal electrical device. So today we have with us JB from PSP Products. He's our go-to when it comes to anything surge related. He's where we get our devices. And I think he's kind of our authority when it comes to that, but don't hear it from me. JB, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, thanks, Brandon. Keeping this real short, yeah, I've been doing power quality surge protection for a little over 30 years now. My primary function has been training electrical engineers how to design these systems. I work with all aspects of it, including design of the products, actual installation, functionality, grounding, and all that kind of good stuff. So, yes, I'm old and I've been doing this for a couple of days.
Makes a lot of sense. I'll say when we first started working together, we did you did a little class for me and the guys, and I thought I knew a lot about it, but I found out what I didn't know. So I appreciate that.
Yep, there's
Um,
a lot of misinformation out there. That is true.
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of what we're going to go over today. So we'll jump right into it, JV. So the biggest, broadest question that most of our clients ask us that we're trying to get to the bottom of is just in a nutshell, what is whole home surge protection? How does that work?
Okay. Classically, people would put in a plug strip with some sort of component inside of it that would be designed to be a surge protector, quote unquote. Um, Times have changed a lot in the last 40 years. Those devices are kind of like, the analogy I use is kind of like putting a fence around your bed when it comes to doing security. You're waiting a little too long to stop the bad guys.
Right.
Your electrical anomalies that occur out there on the lines are frequent. I mean, let's face it, since deregulation, power quality has dropped. The population has increased. Our dependence upon electronics has increased. The sensitivity of the electronics has also increased. So not only are we more dependent upon these devices, but they're a lot more prone to failure simply because they're getting smaller and more sensitive. And with power quality, the infrastructure is aging. As I mentioned, deregulation. All these things are, weather events, all these things contribute to poor power quality. So what whole house surge protection is utilizing one or more devices is a single point or in a system to protect your entire house from any type of a power quality problem coming in from the utility side. That's the short form on it. Um, they're designed, and all surge protection basically works the same way, regardless of what some people may or may not say. Um, it shunts over voltage to ground, literally, just like a radiator cap on your car or your truck. Instead of water pressure going up and the cap opening to release the pressure to protect the pumps and hoses, here, physics happens. Surge protector sits on the side of the system. It sees a voltage above its rated level. It goes into an extreme low resistance state, becomes the path of least resistance to ground out of that panel. What does electricity always want to do? Follow the path of least resistance to ground. So the excess voltage flows through our unit and down into ground where it harmlessly dissipates as opposed to going in your house and blowing up your oven or margarita mixer.
That makes sense. Well, now you're speaking my language, JB. The path of least resistance. I think we've all heard that in electrical theory. And so I think that's a good way to simplify it and say that, hey, when there's a spike in voltage, and we can talk more about what sizes it spikes later, but for the simplicity of now, when we have an overage in voltage like that, it's giving it a place to go, if that makes sense.
That
Uh,
is
which
exactly right.
which of course um, we could talk about, well, these things are wonderful, but they do no good without a good grounding system, right?
Critical. Um, Go back to that radiator cap analogy. I don't care how perfectly that cap works. If you plug the outflow, there's no place for the excess pressure to go, and you're blowing pumps and hoses. Same thing here. If there's too much resistance actually into earth ground from your connection in the panel, more of the voltage is going to flow into the house and damage equipment as opposed to flowing harmlessly down into the dirt. Um, and that's the whole system. You know, there's been a lot of fluff and stuff. There's other terms available, but we'll stick with that one in regards to what surge protection is, how it works, and what you need over the last 30 years that I've been in the industry. And the standards have changed all through that. But that's the one thing that's been consistent. And it's the one thing that gets ignored a lot. If you don't have a good, solid connection to ground and good earth grounding systems, your surge protection is not as effective, period.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I know people would ask, follow-up question about, well, how would I know if my grounding is right? And grounding's, like you said, it's a pretty simple system. We'd be happy to help anybody, but that's a whole different thing that we can get into later, but we definitely need to make sure it's right. We can always come out and take a look for somebody if they want to make sure it's right. It's very simple. We just need to hit your water main, make sure it's grounded to earth. The best way, again, that path of least resistance. So we'll jump right on. And I'd say another question to follow that up with, JV, is after we get this a little bit out, these questions answered, homeowners like to say, well, hey, well, Brandon or JV, I've got either a brand new home or I've got a older home, but the electrical's been updated. So do I really need this? I mean, what's the risks? Since I have new electrical equipment, is there a risk of me not having this?
The surge protectors? Absolutely. I mean, think about it. It doesn't matter. In fact, it's probably even worse in a newer home because you've got lower resistance and more of the nasty stuff will tend to come into the home. Also, in a newer home, you've got more expensive stuff because you've got new appliances,
Very
et cetera, et
true.
cetera, et cetera. If you've wandered around and looked at the prices on appliances lately, it's getting scary what it costs. An AC condenser unit, $3,000 to $5,000 without sweat. Refrigerators are going 2 grand and up. Washer and dryers are well over $1,000 each. It's pretty crazy right now. And because the problems are sourcing outside of the home, it doesn't really matter what you're in. The problems are still out there and they're coming into the house and they're flowing down any conductor they can find. In a new home, lower resistance, better connections, tends to have actually more power quality problems than an older one that's got some resistance buildup just simply because it's physics.
Makes sense. So you mentioned the power or surges coming in from outside. So
Mhm.
now you've got me wondering, and a question we also get is, are we protecting from surges from outside or inside? What are we really protecting from? Where are they
Yes,
coming from?
everywhere. They're serious on that. In the industry, we have what's known as the 298 rule. I mean, everybody worries about lightning. It's a huge major event, but really only about 2% of the damage we see from power quality issues comes from direct lightning strikes. The rest of it, most of the damaging surges are generated on the utility lines from local lightning, AC
Mm,
crossovers, substation events. In summer or winter, major events like grid shifts and things like that. Um, One of the biggest things is rodents. Idiot squirrels sitting on a neutral tap chewing on a hotline.
seen
Rodents like to
that.
chew. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you can, what was it? There was a whole article somebody wrote up years ago about how many power quality issues, power outages, blackouts, and damage was being done by rodents, and it was off the charts, huge numbers.
Wow. Wow.
Um, but additionally, inductive loads. If you're in an area where you've got rural agricultural things and big well pumps, pool pumps, any type of industrial things, those create spikes on a line. That's most of the damaging stuff, but in reality, most of the actual surges that you see are generated inside of a home itself or inside of a building. Every one of those motor loads, every time a refrigerator turns on or off, air conditioner turns on or off, well pump, pool pump, boat davits, any of those devices, your dryer, washing machine, anytime these things turn on or off, there's a small spike generated. Now, these aren't going to blow your stuff up. They're not going to destroy it. But what they do, because all this equipment is now computer controlled, and these circuit
Mm-hmm.
boards are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and as we talked about, more and more sensitive, is they cause the components on these boards to heat up and cool down repeatedly outside of their design parameters, effectively shortening the life. Now, I've seen a lot of studies. In fact, back in the early 2000s, actually it was late 90s, both General Electric and the National Power Labs up in Kenosha, Wisconsin did huge national surveys power quality surveys and residential, commercial, industrial, agricultural, medical, military, complexes, high rises, massive building, you name it. And a huge amount of data came from them, but one of them was 65%, and the other one had almost 80% of all the transient spikes that they saw were generated from within the building itself. Those little guys are what actually degrade the equipment, causing it to fail fast.
I think that's the biggest thing here, JV, that
It's a big one.
kind of is the hurdle for most people to understand is like you said, some does come from outside, but it's mostly generated from inside. So we're creating our own, our utilities are creating their own spikes and surges, which are hurting the other appliances per se. So I guess on that note, we get a lot of questions about, well, hey, I thought this was, lightning. You say surge, I think lightning. Are we protecting from lightning?
Direct lightning? No. You get hit with a direct lightning strike, as I usually recommend, either move or go to church more often. Seriously, you're talking between 5 and 50 trillion watts of energy being released in about 1/1000th of a second. We can't even control that stuff, much less actually stop it. A lightning protection system, it hopes to divert most of it away from your home. So there's no single device that's actually going to stop it. Now, from lightning hitting somewhere on the power lines and feeding in from that direction, yes, these units can be ours at least, and some of the better ones out there are strong enough to divert some of that. But when you're talking direct lightning, there's nothing that'll do it, including ours.
And that's a good way to put it. So someone like me who just went through a new furnace installation and AC installation, and I'm quite invested into my new system that I didn't see coming, of course. It makes me wonder, is the surge, because I do have one of your devices in my panel, and it's the nicer, bigger one. I love it.
Yep.
It makes me feel much safer, but at the same time, do we need ones? Is that one in the main panel going to protect everything, or do I need to worry about putting ones at other locations?
Think about it once again. I use analogies a lot. Security for your home. Ideally, you put a fence around the yard and you lock the gate. You go on vacation, you don't leave the doors and windows open. That's your second stage. So you would close up the doors, lock the windows, and all that kind of good stuff. And then your gold, your diamonds, your valuables go into a safe. Well, we really can't do in most residential applications a three-stage design. That's more commercial, and we do a lot of that in medical and military.
Right.
But one or two stages is not a bad idea. I guess I'll use my house as an example. Right, I'm on the west coast of Florida. I'm in one of the 3 hottest lightning areas in the country.
Oh yeah.
I've been through. Well, my cabin had 4 hurricanes. I actually had 3 in a 15-month span come through here. I've seen St. Elmo's fire running the lines. I'm in a really old neighborhood in an old section of the service lines. Oak trees, a 36-foot flagpole in my front yard, aluminum, and I've had just about every, and it's a very old home. I've had just about every power quality problem you can imagine with a basic surge protection system, and actually even a fairly primitive one compared to what you've got. And a good grounding system. In 27 years, I have had 0.
Wow.
And I will repeat that. 0 equipment lost to any kind of a power quality problem. It hasn't happened. And I've had some really ugly things happen. Now, at my house, I've got one, and in this part of the country and in Pinellas County where I live, it was required to have an old style arrestor or a type 1 SPD on my meter. So I have one there, and then I have my second stage on the panel. My well pump, pool pump sit right outside the house on a cement slab. It's a block house, by the way, on a cement slab in a concrete area. So there's not really much chance of a direct strike or something picking up on them. My electrical service is right there. My grounding is right there next to those 2 devices. I don't have anything special on them. The other side, the far side of the house, though, is my air conditioner system. My condenser's out there. And yes, I just put in a brand new, really expensive carrier system down there. And that is a wire that goes all the way through the house, over the attic, pops out the side of the house, runs down the wall of the house, goes to the disconnect, and then goes over there. And even though that's in a fairly safe environment, once again, on a raised slab up on a driveway, because it's expensive, because that wire is actually outside of the home and there's that much additional wiring in it, I do have a separate unit out on that device. Absolutely.
I
One,
think
the
I'm getting
expense,
what
and
you're
two,
saying.
because lightning, when it hits, and here's something else to keep in mind. If lightning hits somewhere, let's say Cape Hatteras in North Carolina, okay, there's a guy in London that can actually record and see that lightning strike on a passive device. That means it's putting out enough energy to be noticed
Wow.
on the other side of the Atlantic. Now, it's not going to do damage over there, but for 20, 30, 40 yards, there's enough energy being released by that strike that it will actually induce onto any electrical conductor it can find.
A
So those
proximity
wires outside
strike.
of my house are absolutely at risk.
So I think I'm getting it. I think what I'm hearing is that our one in the panel is going to do a good job getting rid of the ones that are coming from the internal of the house, from those devices.
Mhm.
But ones outside, when we're worried about ones coming in from outside, that's where your second stage might kick in, and we might think about putting one in a location like that, like your AC condenser, something like
Yeah.
that.
And let me just clarify something. The one on the panel not only protects from the internally generated transients, but also anything that's coming in from the utility side. So most of your destructive and most of your degrading type spikes will be handled by that one. We're talking about local events or other major things that could occur that could be picked up externally. Like I said, I'm in a real high lightning area, so I have to be aware of those things. Uh, if you're in SoCal, Death Valley, maybe not so much. Um, Depending on where you're at, if you get a fair number of lightning storms annually, then it
Yes,
is,
we do. We
yes,
definitely
you do.
do. Hurricane
Uh,
Alley.
mhm. So yeah, that's something you have to
Okay.
consider then.
That makes a lot of sense. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
Another one kind of following that we get a lot is, hey, if I'm going to make this investment and put it in my panel or other locations, is this going to possibly help my utility bill? Is this, is there other things that I can expect from it? Is it going to, since it's being more efficient, am I going to see a cheaper bill, or how does that work?
Maybe. I can't really tell you because it's going to depend exactly on how your meter's working and the utility company and how they're billing you. There's actually a lot of different. I didn't even realize this till a few years ago when I was starting to do some research on it. But by cleaning up the power, yes, we are going to help with some of that. Absolutely. I'm
Okay,
not going to sit here and promise it to you though, and
for
don't
sure.
promise it to customers. Um, is it going to take care of a lot of other problems that could occur? Yes. Will your insurance company actually give you a discount on your premium for putting it in? Maybe. It used to be a big thing. I know some of the big names out there were doing so. I don't know who is anymore. I can't promise that to anybody. But if somebody puts in a surge protection system, and I'm going to actually backtrack just a little bit, or a lightning protection system, and for what it's worth, Underwriters Laboratories does have a certified, it's called UL96A Master Label Lightning Protection System. And the Lightning Protection Institute also has a certification process for a lightning protection system. And the primary unit that you guys are utilizing is actually qualified to be part of those systems. So they are good enough to be part of a lightning protection system. But with that lightning system and or the surge protection, it's worth a call to your insurance agent or your insurance company to see if there is any discount available as far as that goes. Um, I'm not going to tell you it's going to save you money on your energy bill, but it's certainly not going to hurt. I mean, they're a maintenance-free device. There's nothing that you have to do on it. But yeah, anything that it could do, it will do. Is probably the best way that I can put it on there. But it's nothing that I'm going to sit here and guarantee or promise somebody.
Yeah, and I think that's fair because that's not really what we're putting it in for. But if there's,
Mhm.
benefits that come with it, that's great. But I think
Yeah,
you made a really good point. We had a insurance guy in our networking group, and he was letting us know when we started telling him that we were offering these from you guys that they do offer discounts when those are installed. So it is definitely worth reaching out to find it. It's just like, getting a new roof, you might get a discount. Well,
sure,
protecting your appliances, you might get a discount as well. So it's
absolutely.
definitely worth looking into. The next question I've got for you is when we talk about longevity, I'm obviously making an investment into my electrical system, protecting my appliances, but how long can we expect these things to last? I mean, um, what's the typical lifespan? What can we expect?
I've got them in my house over 25 years old, still working good. Realistically, with the PSP products, the Vortex Series R that you guys are utilizing, it's got a lifetime warranty on it. That covers pretty much everything except for bullet holes and Sharknadoes, as I think I've mentioned. Um, so if it dies for any reason within it, period, no registration necessary. We warrant our product, no games. Um, if it dies, you send it. Actually, you don't have to do that. You call me up. We're going to send you a brand new unit and a label to send the old one back, all on our nickel.
Wow,
An
that's awesome.
investment
So
PSP with a lifetime that's it. It is a lifetime warranty. As long as this company's in business, that warranty will be honored.
that's pretty straightforward. So JB, how would I know that I need a new one?
Um, I joke about there being a black spot on the wall where the unit used to be. That would be a really
Let's
big.
hope, let's hope
Yes.
not.
Yeah, those don't happen much. No, we've got a couple of different forms of diagnostic on there. There is an indicator light. It should be solid green at all times. If it
Okay.
changes color or starts flashing or goes out, any of those things, you assume that unit is damaged and your homeowner should call you. You guys go out, replace the unit. It has an audible alarm, which will also occasionally show you a problem on the electrical service. If you were running, let's say you went open neutral, and instead of having a nice even 120, 120, 240, you were running closer to 180, 60, you would probably hear the audible alarm at that point because it's seeing that as a short to ground or showing that as a problem. Um, but generally, the audible alarm will occur when the unit takes damage. So any indication that the light, anything that looks wrong with the unit, if you see the wires looking blackened or anything, you just assume it's bad. Period.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. So if
Yeah.
it's not green, I know I've got something to take care of.
Yes. Solid
But
green.
you made a good point that the indicator, whether it's the light or the audible noise, we get a lot of calls for we lost a leg.
Hmm.
What the panel has a 120-volt leg and a 120-volt leg, and a lot of times one will get lost, and then we have that voltage you're talking about, or we lose a neutral, and we've got a heavy side and a light side. That would be great if if one of our clients said, "Hey, this thing's going off, and we lost power." We already know what the problem is. So that
Hmm.
it's a helpful diagnostic. So that's good to know.
Yeah. I mean, it's a point of reference. I mean, it does not replace a true diagnostic or doing anything properly. Um, but yeah, it'll help.
Okay, so I guess on that line of what it covers, a lot of people want to look at this as possibly an insurance thing or a policy. How would you describe that? Or, I mean, what's our protection? What are we protecting ourselves? What's our coverage here? What are we covering?
Okay, so first off, this is not an insurance policy or an insurance program. If it was, you would technically have to be a licensed insurance agent. So would I. That's actually a law, by the way.
Makes sense.
Um, yes. So no, yes, PSP does, and Rector Seal, our new parent, does own and have a connected equipment warranty that comes with it. The warranty is spelled out pretty clearly on what is and isn't covered. So yes, if a surge comes through our unit, damages our unit as our unit is doing its job, and still manage to get in and damage your equipment, there is some coverage involved with that. I do recommend, without question, that you, Brandon, and all of your staff read through the warranty at least 2 to 3 times and make sure your customers understand it too. The warranty is very straightforward, tells you what is and isn't covered and what does and does not have to happen. Basically, if the surge comes through the unit and the unit cannot actually handle it,
Right.
there will be damage to the unit and the surge will not go to ground. It will come into and damage some equipment. Replacement parts for those equipment would be damaged. Now, I'm not customer service, so this is getting a little bit outside of my bailiwick, but yeah, you can call our customer service department and go through that. But the biggest thing is just read the warranty and understand it and be honest with the customers about it. It's straightforward, no games, and
Yeah,
designed
that's a
real.
good point. We definitely have a policy of we make sure that we open it up, we show it to them. It is very straightforward. They typically don't have any questions because it's spelled out pretty simply.
Yep.
And we leave that information with them. But again, we're happy to call. You guys are always on the ball if we need anything. So
And you can always get it on our website too.
excellent, excellent. So I think that's some pretty darn good information, JB. So just to kind of to wrap this thing up, I mean, the way things going and the way technology is, you mentioned like we pretty much have, what sent us to the moon in our pockets,
Exactly.
everything has become, a very high tech, awesome device, but at the same time, they're very, susceptible to damage. They're very, very volatile, with how they can be hurt. So we have to watch out for things. I know, in fact, a lot of the new appliances that are coming out, whether it's a dishwasher, a washing machine, dryer, even the furnaces, some of them are requiring surge protection to be installed in the manual because they don't want someone calling saying, "Hey, this thing died on me," and it's brand new. They want to make sure those things are protected, so they're trying to get ahead of the game. So I think that's some pretty good information. But JB, I really appreciate it. And if anybody needs to check anything, go ahead.
I just wanted to touch on two notes here because you just brought up something about some manufacturers recommending it. It is now part of National Electric Code. Any new services or service upgrades require surge protective devices in the panel. That's across the board. Now, states are adopting that in whatever order they do. I don't know if you have locally yet or not, but that's something that is there. Two, when it comes to grounding and the importance of grounding, National Electric Code is a fire safety device. It's actually written by the NFPA, the National Fire Protection Association, and which is good, but it does not take care of your equipment. It really doesn't care about your oven. It just wants to make sure that you survive. So when I talk about grounding and, or somebody saying, yeah, I'm up to NEC, that means nothing in the real world of surge protection. NEC ground is not a power quality ground. So connecting to a cold water pipe, very good. Connecting to a ground rod, very good. Making it into a delta ground or a higher quality, power quality ground where you're talking about 5 ohms of resistance or less into the soil is going to improve the overall quality of the electricity and the power to your customer's home. It's going to make the surge protector work a lot better. And is generally going to be one of those little value added things that can help you and your company separate itself from the competition.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I'm actually glad you brought that up, JV, because we just switched over here at the beginning of the year in our jurisdiction where it is required with any kind of power change out, a panel, a meter. We have to put them in because obviously they found out over the last 5 years they're just losing too much equipment, and they're finally just going to force us to put them in. And this is where this conversation comes up, is we're changing out a panel and we explain to the client, we have to put this in by code, and then why. So this is a great video that I can show them and say, what, yes, we have to do this, but really you want to do this, this is something that's going to save you a lot of time and money over the next, the lifespan of your appliances, which I've heard this can add, possibly 30% or more to the lifespan of appliances. Granted, depends on what it is and whatnot. But as we're adding more and more appliances, EV chargers, all these things are taking tremendous loads on the system. And I think this is just a great way to get ahead of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, JV, I appreciate your time, and we'll
pleasure.
be in touch. And anyone can look up PSP Products and get their information, or you can obviously check us out, especialist.pro, and we'd be happy to answer any questions for you. Thanks a lot, JV.
Not a problem. You have yourself a great day. Thanks a lot, Brandon.
You too. Thank you.